Well, I guess I'll start like from my first DMT experience. I tried it like a few times beforehand and I never broke through, but the first time I tried it, I was at a festival in West Virginia, and a few friends of ours, like, we went up on the top of this mountain and had like a little one hitter and sandwiched the DMT between some bud, and had to have somebody light it for me because it was only facing like the one side towards the other person.
Psychotropic presents Jack Jack.
I think I was on mushrooms too when this happened, so I had no idea what to expect. I remember taking the first hit and watching the trees just kind of fractal out, and it felt like the air got sucked out of the room, and it almost felt like there was these high-pitched noises, like the trees were talking to me and like saying hello. And of course, I'm in like amazement of all this. And like the person in front of me, she was like, "Well, just take one more." And I'm like, "Okay." So I took another one, and she was like, "Lie back." And so I laid down, and we were at this tree line. And I remember looking up at these pine trees, and the bark started to crystallize and like grow all the way up the tree. And then I decided, I was like, I think I should close my eyes. So I did that, and I heard this spiral of energy come down, touch my throat, and it felt like it opened my throat chakra, and out of my throat chakra, this voice came out, and it was a familiar voice. It was it was my guitar teacher's voice, and he said, "You got to get that voice out, boy." And I was totally perplexed, because I was like, why, out of like all the people in my life, like, why is my guitar teacher speaking to me in my first DMT experience? And I saw all these, I guess you would say, like kind of like Hindu gods with multi-arms, and they were all like 2D visuals, and they were interlocking arms, almost like they were kind of doing like that can-can dance, you know, that you see like burlesque dancers do. And I started to come out of it then, and that was my first time. And then after the festival, I brought some DMT back, and I tried doing it alone in my room, listening to music. And the second time I tried to do it, I remember I took the hit, and I'm lying back in my room, and I felt like my body, or like I was leaving my body, like I was going closer and closer towards the ceiling. And I saw all of this geometry in front of me, and it felt like I got stopped. And there was this like feeling, this voice that was speaking to me that said like I was exiled and I wasn't allowed to leave my body yet. And I was terrified, and it was like this demanding, almost parental voice saying like, you know, you shouldn't be doing this right now, like this isn't the time. And I came out of that experience like totally scared, and I was sobbing. I remember being like, I don't know if I want to do this ever again. And so that was like pretty much the last time I had it. And then a few years later, or actually it was probably last year, I had a friend who came into some contact with DMT, and I met my fiance, and like, so I was like, you know, I've never broken through or anything, and she has a lot of experience with it, so. One night, we packed up the bong, and I put a little bit of DMT in there just to see what it was like. And my first attempt at trying to break through, it wasn't successful. Somehow, like the music that was like in cue, like got messed up. So I was just like in this very strange uncomfortable situation, and like I was in this labyrinth, and there's all this 2D geometry, and I saw a lot of like strange alien creatures like elves and green creatures, and they were just like taking me on this like cartoon labyrinth. And I came out of that, and I know I didn't break through, so I tried again. The second time, I felt my body dying, and I saw like my death. I saw like multiple frames of my life being flashed before my eyes, like almost like in the Matrix, where he goes into that room and there's all those TVs everywhere. Every single one of those TVs was playing like a different part of my life, and also things that like didn't happen. Like I thought like I died, and the paramedics were coming into my room and like shining lights in my eyes and everything, like checking my pulse. I heard my mom's voice like crying out, and then I started to separate from my physical body, and I was floating closer and closer to this portal, and I could see in the distance, it was almost like a little water droplet in the darkness. There was these two pink beings, and they were really far away from me. I knew I didn't have enough DMT in my system, so like I started to like fade out of like the trip, and I saw this black, almost like hippo-like being like come between me and this portal with these two pink beings. And I started to get like really sad, and I felt this immediate separation, and I came out of it like sobbing, and I was just like, oh, I was so close. I was so close. And I stopped trying for that night. And the next day, got off work, and the whole entire day I just kept thinking about that moment. Like I was so close that I could like feel this physical like magnetic pull towards that realm, whatever it was. I just knew there was something else that like I had to see. And so sat up in the room, lit a bunch of candles, had my fiance next to me, and I decided, all right, let's try to do this again. So I put a lot more in than I did the previous times, because I was like, I need to get there. Like I have to try to, like, this has to happen. And I got about 2 rips in, and then I just like, according to my fiance, I just kind of like slumped over, and I died immediately. Everything happened so fast. It wasn't like the previous times where it was like this slow progression through all these labyrinths and portals, and like seeing these other strange elf beings, all 2-dimensional. And I felt myself die. I felt myself lose every part of my ego. I felt like at the very end, before like I separated, I had to like let go of my name, and like that's what happened. I let go of my name and every part of like who I was, and then I was transported into this white light, and then I was in this blue room. It was like a blue indigo dome, and there was these 2 pink, I have to describe them as like caterpillar-like beings, but almost like they were like on all 4s, but I think they had like multiple legs like caterpillars, but they were like really fat, kind of like I don't want to say like a star fruit, but there's like some sort of weird fruit that they look like. It's like orange with little pink nodes and stuff, and almost like a puffer fish, but pink and like a caterpillar at the same time too. They were on all 4s, and then they like stood up erect, and they looked at me, and I felt this total neutral sense of love in this place. And I looked to my right, like I noticed that these things were like it was like I was in another realm. Like I would look around, and like they would stay like in front of me. I would look to my right, and like I was like in this space, like it was 3-dimensional. And I remember looking to my right, and I saw another being, and he was blue. I don't know if it was a he or she, but this being was blue, and it looked like Ganesh, like the Hindu elephant god. But instead of like one single trunk coming down its face, it had like almost like tentacles, like multiple trunks, or almost just like Cthulhu, like the octopus, like Lovecraft, god. So it was like this Cthulhu Ganesh character, and I remember its eyes were just like this very deep blue, and it was just staring at me. And he was on my right, and I looked forward again to see these two pink caterpillar beings, and I started I just kept saying, like, I love you, I love you. Apparently my fiance was telling me, I was just like saying, like, I love you, like, I love you, I love you. And I started to see her, my fiance, fade into this vision, and the caterpillar beings like recognized her, and they looked at her, and they like saw her and recognized her in this space, and they looked back at me, and then they stepped in front of my fiance, and their faces started to blend together as like they were becoming one being. And I remember like watching this happen, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. That these beings recognized her and like stepped in front of her and decided to like blend together, my fiance and them together. And I felt like just so much love that, oh my gosh, I was bawling my eyes out with how beautiful this was. And it felt like they were just saying to me that like, we are all one, we're all connected together, and like someday, like, we're all going to go to this place where I was. And I came out of the trip, and I was just like thanking my fiance so much, just like bawling my eyes out. She was bawling too. And oh man, I finally came out of it, and I explained everything to her. And I was like, I finally saw him. And she's like, yeah. And I like, she never told me like what she saw when she had all of her experiences and like the other experiences that she's accounted for with other people. She didn't want to like she didn't want to give me any preconceived notions. So I explained what I saw to her. And she said, I was like, I saw these like pufferfish like looking beings. And she's like, yeah, like they're pink. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, they're pink, right? And I'm like, yeah. She's like kind of like caterpillars. And I'm like, yeah, they do look like caterpillars. And I'm like, has everybody else said this too? And she's like, yeah, all these other people who I've conducted like experiments with, like they all like are like, yeah, they're like these pink caterpillar beings and stuff. So I just came out of that experience with a new sense of like spirituality, and just like, I know in my heart of hearts that there is something else outside of like physical death from these experiences. So I started to research a whole bunch about, first time breakthrough DMT experiences. I went on the DMT Nexus, and I just typed in like Cthulhu Ganesh, like see what anybody says about that. So someone on there like compiled all these firsthand experiences, also first time breakthrough experiences, where people saw Ganesh, and they call him like the remover of obstacles. And I'm reading all these experiences, and it was just strange. I got like a chill up my spine, like, okay, everybody else has also like had Ganesh and like their first breakthrough experiences. And like, I know people who've had these pink caterpillar beings, and some other people in there were talking about pink catfish. And like, I was like, all right, that's weird too. Like maybe, we're saying the same thing, but using different language. So I'm scrolling through all these messages, and I find someone who says like, yeah, like I had a Ganesh experience too, but it was almost like Ganesh mixed with Cthulhu. Like there was multiple tentacles and like multiple trunks coming down. And this person like literally described the same thing that I saw. And this was like from like 2007 or something. So I'm like, all right, not only do like I know people who have had the same experience, but someone else had like literally the exact same experience that I had. And I just find that so fascinating. I mean, like that's just even more proof for myself that like there's something else out there, and I feel like they're with us like all the time. Like when we just can't see them.
What does it feel like to die? You had said that you felt your body die immediately. And I kind of wonder why you associated that sensation with death.
Well, I remember my fiance, like the second time I tried it, where I didn't break through, but I felt myself die. Like, I asked her, I was like, "Do you die every time?" And she's like, "No, you don't die every time." But like, after my first breakthrough experience, I'm like, "You die every time you do this," and she's like, "Yeah, you die every time." But what it feels like, because I've also tried microdosing DMT, like, to try to prolong this experience, because like I always felt that, like, if you do like a whole big hit of DMT, like, it's just like going on the fast track, bam, you're out of your body, like you're in another realm. But if you do a slow progression, like there's like a program, or there's a step-by-step journey to getting to that moment of death and then breaking through. The feeling of dying. So what happens is that, I think, when you take like a low dose of DMT, first, like, I'm aware of like this egg that wraps like my entire body. And I would do this like in my room with my eyes closed, and I could like see the egg around me. And a few other books I've read about like shamanism, they talk about like an egg, an aura around like humans. And this one time I was trying it, microdosing, I saw the egg, and then I put it in a vape pen, like a e-cigarette vape pen, so I could like microdose it and not have to like have any weed or anything like that, to like, that would mess up the trip, or like how I'd feel. Because sometimes smoking weed, like, you get in your head about it, you're like, I don't know if I want to like try this anymore, you know, like I'm already high, like this isn't good. So I wanted something very clean, so I used the vape pen, and I could see the egg around me. And I would take another rip, and then there's like this amoeba-like pattern that like comes towards me out of like the ether or the darkness of my vision, and almost like tests this egg aura around me. And what I think it does, I think these like beings, like, which aren't the same beings, at least that I don't think they are, that like you meet when you break through, but I think these beings like test your like auric field, and they start to dissolve it. So then if I take another hit of DMT and like go a little further, and when you get to this point where like you're at like this barrier where you know you're about to like break through, that's where your body starts to die. And like these beings, like, they don't really have like a shape or a form, but they definitely deconstruct my body. Not like in like a graphic way or anything, but like it's a physical feeling, almost like I can feel them like loosening like the threads of my astral body. And that's where I started to feel my astral body, was with these like low doses of DMT. I could feel that there is this higher self, which I wasn't aware of before, that like wants to go to this place so bad. It's a longing. It's a very strange sense. And I've talked to my fiance about this. It's like, after you do it, or like if you don't get there, like there's like this feeling inside of you that like just longs to be there. Like it knows about it. Like it wants to go there. And I think with certain people, like, I always feel like my teeth are falling out when I'm about to die. Like it feels like, I don't know why. Like with my fiance, she feels like her hair's falling out, like when like she's about to like break through. But it's always my teeth for me. So I feel like my teeth like falling out of my head, and like my body's like dissolving, and like these beings are just like taking me apart energetically, and then like bam, like you break through, like you go through that barrier.
Why did you feel the need to break through? You tried DMT a number of times before you actually broke through, it sounds like. And I'm kind of curious what drove you to continue using, to continue trying.
It was that longing feeling, man. Like I just felt like there was something else, and I would talk to like my fiance about it, and like she's like, you didn't break through, and I'm like, I didn't. And like I could talk to anybody else about it too, and like I would know if they broke through or not, if they like met these beings or whatever. I mean, it it was just that longing feeling. It's like my I felt like it was my astral self being like, I know I want to go back there, like I know I want to be there, like what is it, like I have to know. And like also the fact that like I felt like I was exiled from that place, like in my younger years. Like I was totally like, you're not allowed to do this. Like there's a few times like I did try to like smoke it, and like it felt like there was something behind me like not letting me like leave my body. And I felt like it correlated with me meeting my fiance, and like it was like, now you're ready, like now you can do this, like you're allowed to do this now and to see what else is out there.
What mechanism of action do you think is taking place that will allow you to transport from this everyday normal consciousness realm into the realm with the pufferfish caterpillar people?
uh like how do I think it's like, how does it happen?
Yeah, what do you think is happening? I mean, I feel like when you do experience this type of thing, you do try to, or at least I try to place it in the larger context of the universe. I basically try to take my experience and I try to integrate it with my understanding of how the universe works, what the universe is, my place in the universe.
I think I don't know, I have a few theories about it. Like I think like it definitely separates my consciousness from my physical body. But I had this question. I was like, all right, so multiple people see these beings and multiple people have these experiences. So are there like multiple beings for like each individual person? Or is it that like we're all part of this giant consciousness that also experiences like, that is like separate from these other beings, but we're also like on the same length, like we're both like spirits and energy and alive, so we're connected that way. But I feel like personally, like every person on the planet, every other being, we're all kind of like the eye of this giant spider. Like we all have like a different perspective, but we're all witnessing like life, and we're all connected to like one giant being, like the unus mundus, like the collective consciousness. So like our egos dissolve and we like become like this energy, this maybe like this human spirit or something like that like witnesses these other beings. Or I don't know, I don't really understand how that could work. Like if you could take two people and give them DMT and they both meet these beings, if they turn to their right, are they going to see each other? But like, or are they just gonna be like melded together and witnessing the same thing through like the same set of eyes? I don't know.
See, so it kind of sounds like, tell me if I got this right. We're all, like, the human race is an eye on this multi-eyed spider,
Yeah.
right? Or our culture is an eye on the multi-eyed spider. And there are other, what we're calling, say, realms, which are almost stacked one on top of each other or something, where another realm might be another eye on that same
Mm-hmm.
spider. And
Yes.
as you were talking, it almost seems like DMT might take you from your normal existence, from that eye that you're used to seeing through, and it transports your consciousness into another eye, or allows that eye to maneuver over so that it's now viewing a different portion of that spider's overall vision
Yes.
than what it was before.
Yeah.
I do wonder, so you had talked about how multiple people, they see similar things happen, right?
Yes.
Your fiance, she was like, yeah, they're pink, right? And you're like, yeah, how the fuck did you know that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It does make me wonder. So first off, there's a part of me that believes in a version of what you're talking about with the spider, right?
Mm-hmm.
And realms that we're all kind of one thing. Like, ultimately it's one realm, but we're only seeing one facet of it. Our senses only allow us to see one facet.
Yeah.
But there's another part of me that kind of wonders, this is the neuroscientist in me, which I'm not a neuroscientist. I got my degree in neuroscience, but by no means am I a scientist. There's another part of me that I've tried thinking about this, and first off, I don't feel like the visions that we get from a DMT trip, the way that the vision organizes, I can't understand how it can even be possible, right? Because if you're flooding your brain with a compound that mimics, or at least attaches to, receptors that your normal neurotransmitters attach to, if you flood those receptors with this compound, then I kind of feel like you should be either shutting your consciousness down temporarily if those receptors, or if that compound generates an inhibitory effect in your brain, or if it's an excitatory effect, if it actually activates your neurons, then your consciousness should become super fractalized and confusing and disorienting, right? And when you first dive into a DMT trip, especially if you get one that's close to breaking through but not quite, in my experience, you end up experiencing just this menagerie of fractals.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, it's complete pandemonium. But then what happens is, if you take enough, all of a sudden you break through those fractals and you enter into this space that can be interpreted, it seems like you're in another world or another realm, and there's entities. You can identify these things as being entities, and you can describe them. They have traits, right? And so the neuroscientist in me, it makes me wonder if, whatever system, the serotonin system within you, it becomes disorganized. It experiences this state of pandemonium that should be interpreted as fractals to your consciousness. But there's another system, kind of an interpreter system within your brain, that takes all that data and then it tries to interpret it, right?
Okay.
So what you're experiencing is you're experiencing your interpreter, which is kind of overseeing your serotonin system, and it's doing its best to make sense of it. And the way it makes sense of it, you see the multi-armed elephant, and you see the caterpillar entities and stuff in this weird realm that seems kind of familiar and everything, but is completely alien at the same time. And so when I think about that, I kind of wonder if you were to take two people, each person from a completely different culture. You got to get these cultures as far apart as possible culturally. You bring them together, and if you give them the same dose of DMT, I wonder if they would still experience similar entities and realms. Because if they did, then, I guess that still doesn't really answer the question. It either says that, the foundations of our neural network are genetically based, like the way that the neurons network together are genetically based, which I think that's definitely partially the case. Or if you're experiencing the same thing, then you're like, no, it actually does kind of open you up to another eye of the spider.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to
I
answer that. I don't even know what that would really say if we did that.
well, I found it strange because like I was raised Catholic and I don't consider myself religious anymore, but like I never even knew like Ganesha, like I didn't even know that name or like really know about like this elephant god. And then like I like had my experience and I'm just like, whoa, like now I have to research that like completely, like who is that? Like how come like I kind of recognized it? Like I don't know. I felt that was kind of strange too. It was just like, all right, well, like why? Why a Hindu god? Like I wasn't in like fluffy clouds with like Jesus hanging out with me. Like it's just like no, like you're in like this weird like blue indigo bubble. I will say, I read like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and there's this part like where they're describing this. This was after my DMT trip because I would like skim through the Tibetan Book of the Dead before my breakthrough experience and be like, I don't know what this says. Like, I don't know much about Tibetan Buddhism, but like this book was gifted to me by my aunt, and I found this page. Like, I just kind of opened it, and they're describing like after you die, like you go to this rainbow light realm, and this realm is blue, just like the realm that I was in. And you see the primordial Buddha, who is blue, with two other consorts with them. And this, in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it says the primordial Buddha will like pierce you, and then you ascend to like another realm. But like, I always wondered, like, is there some another breakthrough experience in your breakthrough experience? Like, all right, what if I do DMT and I'm like, okay, like, is there another place to go? And unfortunately, I've never had like the ability to like test that theory, but my fiance has told me she's been taken to like a Rainbow Road situation before with her trips, but hasn't told me anything else about that. But I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting that like certain, like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, about, you know, you read that book to someone who's dying, and they also like talked about similar things that I experienced when I had my breakthrough experience where I felt like I died and I entered the blue realm.
And that was definitely coming from a culture that is at least somewhat removed from the culture that you were brought up in.
Definitely far removed.
This episode was produced by me, Philip Johnson. All songs used can be found in the description section of this episode. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe. Also, rate and leave a review on iTunes. It goes a really, really long way. If you'd like to become a patron of Psychotropic, or if you'd like to check out some Psychotropic related swag, or if you have a story to share, you can do all of this at psychotropicpodcast.com. If you're interested in getting a better idea about upcoming episodes, be sure to follow Psychotropic on Instagram at Psychotropic Podcast, all one word. Thanks again for listening, everybody. See you next time.